I got a joke. How many Romulans does it take to screw in a light bulb?
This sounds like a trick question, so I'm going to say 2.
I was going to say 2. One to do the work and the other one to watch his back to make sure that Tao Shiar's not coming.
That's a good answer. That's a good
I like
answer.
where your head's
That's
at.
a good answer. The response is 151, 1 to screw in the light bulb, and 150 to destroy the ship out of disgrace.
I don't know. Disgrace seems more like a Klingon thing to me.
They die with honor.
I'm just gonna let you go. We'll get there because there's a whole string of these. How many
All right,
Vulcans? How many Vulcans does it take to screw in a light bulb?
None. The Vulcan Science Academy has determined that the replacement of light bulbs is impossible.
So much better than what
3.
these answers are.
We'll go with 3.
The answer.
I don't know why 3, but
the answer is approximately 1.000000000.
oh, boo.
How many Borg? How many Borg does it take to change a light bulb?
There are 80,000 drones on a cube. They all have to work together to do anything.
That's the answer, actually.
80,000. Oh, really?
Like to the point. You've heard the joke for all of them. That's how many. Yep. How many Klingons does it take to screw in a light bulb?
1.
There are 15 on a bird of prey. I don't know. They all have to work together, I guess.
None. Klingons are not afraid of the dark.
Oh, that's good. I like that one.
Where are you getting these? These are good ones.
That one was good.
These are hard to guess.
What do the Klingons do with the dead bulb?
Smash it and send it to Stovacor in disgrace.
Execute it for failure.
They have to yell into the sky first.
That is not true. Dead bulbs do not get to go to Stovacor.
This bulb did not die with honor.
Well, they might put it into a sarcophagus and put it on the outside of their ship to serve as extra armor.
0.1 AC. We're good there.
Yeah.
What do the Klingons do with the Klingon who replaces the light bulb?
Feed them to the Targ?
No, Takuvma welcomes him as the light bringer or the torch bearer.
Oh.
So, before I give you the answer, these jokes are extraordinarily aged because or dated. Yeah, they're dated because there's some ones in here that talk about like, you know, if you think Hillary Clinton is hotter than Captain Janeway, you might be a Trekkie. And I'm just like, okay, that's an old joke. That's like 25 years ago.
Where do you find these old jokes?
But what do Klingons do with the Klingon who replaces the bulb? Execute him for cowardice!
Being afraid of the dark.
Right.
Yeah, that fits. Fits with the joke.
Yeah.
Red alert.
Welcome back, everybody.
good
Oh, well, you just totally ruined the intro, Jay.
Sorry.
Thanks. Jay. This is Jay's show now. Jay's the
Okay,
speaker
I'm off,
of the
close.
show. Jay's the
I fucked it
speaker.
up again.
Jay's the speaker. Welcome back to Beyond Trek Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Dag. In the room with me, I've got Big J and Renzo. Today, we're going to talk to you about Lower Decks Season 3 episode, Mining the Minds of Minders of Mining the Minds' Minds. You can see that if you're watching the YouTube video over Renzo's head. Thanks for the script, Renzo. Appreciate. As always, this episode is going to be completely torn apart, decimated, and with deep dives and deep cuts. So this is your official spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Better than turning it to stone, I think. All right.
Yes.
So, the beautiful establishing shot pans over a golden world before descending down to a rocky surface at night. An elder scientist is investigating what appears to be a glowing green orb, when from it, an illusion of a scientist geology teacher appears in a toga. She seduces him with appeals to his storytelling, and then he touches her, and he turns to stone. The credits scene, which I still love with the crystalline entity. Freeman's captain's log summarizes the events that led them there. They're on Genghis 4, a world harboring silicon life forms that skirmished with the scientists before the USS Hood negotiated peace. Cerritos is staying behind to clean up with another California class, the USS Carlsbad, and relocate the outpost to another world. In the ready room, Ransom vents about how Federation scientists are always in danger. They're getting eaten, disappearing, getting eggs laid in their chest, and being devoured by plants. He details the mission, relocating the base and disposing of the psychic mines, the glowing green orbs that turn people to stone. In the hallway, Rutherford, Boymore, and Mariner are on their way to the transporter room when they run into Tendi, who is beginning her senior science officer training. She says she can't wait for her brain to explode with science, and Rutherford remarks that that's how he wants to go too. Tendi wishes for them to have a good time and then goes to the mess hall, where she finds out, to her disappointment, that Dr. Miggly Mo is her trainer, and he has no experience in doing this at all. Beaming to the surface, Stevens gives the lower deckers the rundown about the psychic mines and leaves them to the mission. They exchange barbs with their counterparts from the Carlsbad and are left feeling like losers. Mariner gets in one good harumph before going back to work with the Cerritos crew. Tendi's fluster only grows as Miggly Mo frustrates his way through the training guide, with a foreword written by Ambassador Spock. She declares that she's ready to take the test, but is countered by Miggly Mo, who says he wants to see her in a situation where she has to get the captain's attention, and the current diplomatic situation taking place is the perfect opportunity. Reluctantly, Tendi agrees and gets underway. Rutherford is busily disposing of psychic mines when a vision of none other than Dr. Leah Brahms, famous engineer and designer of the Galaxy-class starship's warp field and engine system, and it's voiced by the original actress, Susan Gibney, appears before him. While he is perfectly aware of her illusory nature, he battles for the desire to design starships with her, and he overcomes it. Mariner expresses a desire to be competitive with the Carlsbad team's efforts, and Boymore and Rutherford agree to smoke those guys. Rutherford continues to grapple with Leah's apparition. Boymore has to confront an admiral's offer to save the universe, and Mariner has to abashedly admit her fantasy is Jennifer, the Andorian. In the ready room, Freeman acknowledges Carlsbad Captain Meyer's youth and ambition, while ignoring Tendi's scientific appeal when a Scrubble and a scientist, Dr. Holden, walk in, debating each other's definition of life. Freeman welcomes them, and the Scrubble offers her a token stone pyramid as a goodwill gesture. Freeman offers it to Captain Mayor, who declines, which sets off an endless competition to get one of them to accept the gift. On the planet, the lower deckers are straining to ignore their fantasy illusions, and Mariner chides the Carlsbad team, which appears to be struggling. Steven calls out to Mariner, and calls out Mariner's dangerous disposal methods, but Mariner convinces him that they need to make Ransom look good. As a result, Stevens tries to dispose of some orbs and knocks over the disposal unit, fracturing the collection of orbs and setting off psychic nightmares. Stevens is attacked by a visage of the Kukulkan, a feathered serpent god in many Mesoamerican cultures, and is lifted bodily into the air. This contact turns Stevens to stones, and he plummets to the ground. His arms shatter, and a scream of fear is frozen into his face. The Carlsbad crew runs to assist, and a group of nightmares manifest. A giant Borg serpent, Klingon Clowns with razor-sharp batlets for arms, and a massive tentacled raisin monster. And a giant Andorian werewolf Jen, who wants an exclusive, committed relationship with Mariner. Truly, nightmares. They flee into a cave and collapse the entrance, but communications are also blocked. With no way of knowing how long it will take for the psychic monsters to dissipate, they decide to stay in the cavern. This begins a conversation with Cerritos, who warns that the Carlsbad team admires them, calling the Cerritos the coolest. In Cerritos' ready room, Freeman and Captain Mayor continue to debate over acceptance of the gift, ignoring, once again, Tendi's attempt to point out strange energies coming from the rock itself. In the cave, the officers use a phaser to heat the rock for warmth, and the two teams gain an understanding and respect for each other. Just then, the Borg Snake comes in and threatens to assimilate them, spitting a basketball at the team before getting jointly phasered. The two teams are somewhat taken aback to learn that these nightmares aren't specific to any one member, and dive deeper into the cave to investigate. On the Cerritos, Tendi goes to medbay dejected. A pep talk from Dr. Ta'ana convinces her to make a mess of things before putting things right. She leaves that the doctor takes a Starfleet issue chainsaw to a patient's parasite-infested leg. In the cave, the team stumble upon a literal data mine made of Federation technology and determine that the scientists and the Scrubble are working together to steal Federation secrets. Probably for profit. Mariner breaks off some massive crystals with which they fight the psychic villains long enough to get a comm signal to their respective ships and demount. In the ready room, Freeman and the other ship's captain fight over the stone, and it reaches a crescendo. As Mariner barges into the room to explain the situation, Tendi grabs the rock itself and shatters it, revealing a spy device that would have compromised security no matter which ship it ended up on. Freeman decides that she's finally ready to start a meeting. In her closing log, she says that they've determined that the conflict which brought the ships to the planet in the first place was contrived for the exact purpose to steal Federation information. The scientists wanted better equipment and the Scrubble wanted more rocks. A small celebration is being held in Cerritos' mess hall in honor of this success. Stevens, who has been cured of his petrification, has his arms in casts while attempting to tell a Vulcan comrade about his near-death experience. He claims that he saw a koala sitting on the Black Mountain, references from previous episodes, and the Vulcan, annoyed, leaves. Unable to drink his drink easily, he lobs a shot of cinnamon schnapps into his face, mostly in his eyes. Miggly Mo approaches Tendi, congratulating her for her efforts in uncovering the conspiracy and how appropriate that it is for a senior science officer candidate. Tendi says that she couldn't have done it without a great mentor, while staring at Dr. Ta'ana past Miggly Mo. With unearned grandiosity, Miggly Mo cluelessly accepts the credit and toasts to himself, and to a lesser extent Tendi. Captain Mayor apologizes to Captain Freeman, who accepts it with an offering, a neutralized piece of stone from Genghis 4. The two away teams gather in a nearby booth, praising each other's reputations. The Cerritos team learns that they are Cali class famous. If not across the fleet, the Callies all know them. Fulfilling Ransom's note that California-class crews get gossipy, they celebrate with a little Boimler roasting, playing up the notion that he is regarded not as a human, but as a tiny, hovering, comedic robot cube. We fade out from the two California-class ships in orbit as Boimler pleads to them, "Tell them I'm people." And that's our episode.
Tell them I'm people. That, I didn't quite get that one. Am I missing a reference?
I think it was just that, he's everybody else is known as what they are, except Boimler. People keep thinking Boimler is just like a robot. He's like, no, I'm not a robot. I'm a people. I'm a people. Please tell them I'm a people.
I think that's all it is, but I kind of want to hope that it's also a reference to like the old story, They're Made of Meat. From
Soylent Green?
No.
Soylent Green?
No, it's called They're Made of Meat.
Oh, that's like the ones where the aliens are like, yes, they're made of meat.
Yeah, it's a Terry Bisson short story. They're just like two people in a diner, like who've been studying Earth. They're aliens, and they're like coming up to the realization that humans are just meat sacks that think, and they've never encountered a form of life like that. Every other form of life was something different than that. And humans don't have like a plasma core that does the thinking for them. We don't have like an extra macroscopic thing that thinks for us. No, we're just made of meat. So they come to the decision that they're not people. We're just going to quarantine this planet because knowledge that meat can think would shatter our empire.
Oh. Okay.
The vegan movement in that empire would really take on if sentient life could be made of meat. Ay. First, they could just
Is it
farm
the planet of vegans?
If I were those people, I might try to find them in sort of a revolution-y state and then make them eat a lot more so that they would be seasoned well, and then have them, warm their planet so they can be lightly marinated. Wait a second.
I think you might be straying a little bit too far into Soylent Green then.
No, it just sounds like reality.
Wait, how did we get into talking about near cannibalism? I thought we were talking about...
Because they're made of meat.
Well, for any of you that thought you were listening to a Star Trek podcast, guess again.
Well, we're going to veer back to that. So a couple things I really loved about this episode. I really liked the appearance of the USS Hood, which starts off so many episodes in TNG, or ends episodes in TNG, where somebody gets picked up from the Hood or gets given back to the Hood at the end of the episode. It's one or the other with them.
Yeah.
I love that that's the reference here. The Hood did the work, and now the two California-class ships have to, handle all the details.
Yeah, I like I like that they have the Hood here to contrast against the Obana class, which is the Sovereign Edition Excelsior, but yeah, this is really
They're
good.
really getting their mileage out of that design. The Excelsior class is easily 100 years old.
Absolutely.
A little more than 100. But
95.
If it works, it works.
90, 92? 98?
Well, 2284
to
with the events
2381.
of...
So 97?
Yeah.
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 Probably good.
Hey, if it works,
It's
it works.
a long
It's a good design.
ship. Yeah, it's a good ship frame. It's got a lot of space. The thing was massive in its era, so it's got plenty of room for upgrades as the thing got older. So I mean, it's a solid space frame. Makes sense to keep using it as long as it keeps doing a job. Remember the Lakota in Deep Space Nine got tactical upgrades too to put it in not quite the Defiance League, but pretty damn close.
Yeah, nobody knew about the Defiance blade of armor.
Yeah, a
Great
blade of armor
saber.
was the unfair bit.
Well, okay, so here's my question about the hood, and I'm probably going to answer it for myself as I'm talking, but so look, the Lakota was shown the way that it was because we had that new updated model for the Enterprise B in Star Trek Generations. So they decided to use that Excelsior variant as the Lakota in that episode of DS9. So is it safe to assume that then for the hood and I guess the Revision 1 Excelsior class ships that they don't get those upgrades? And if so, why did the Lakota get it? Now I know that the script is the script, but why didn't we see that in this one?
I would venture to guess that first, it's a matter of need and resources and allocation. And second, there may have been a priority. It's hard to say that the hood isn't in the same league as, say, the Enterprise B or the Excelsior, but they just didn't upgrade the hood space frame. Maybe the hood had a different mission assignment. Very much.
I think that's exactly it. That's what I would think it is.
Yeah.
Different tasks for different ships, right? You're going to make modifications to the ones that need it. United States Navy has whole classes of ships that have supposed to have like swappable modules that they could replace with depending on the mission that they were being sent out for. A little bit harder to modify the actual like hull of a ship, but not impossible. I would just wager that the hood was always envisioned and used as like a diplomatic ship. That's mostly what we saw it for in TNG. The Lakota in its earlier days was probably something of like a border patrol ship with like the Klingon Empire or something along those lines. And then by the time of DS9, it still had its tactical loadout. So that's the one that they chose to upgrade with tactical systems. Something along those lines makes sense to me. But we see plenty of like not Enterprise B sub-class versions of the Excelsior throughout the Dominion War, and they are all able to keep up and fight fine. So I don't know. I feel like it's just like a different shipbuilding contract, right? Like maybe the Excelsiors that were built over Utopia Planitia look like the Excelsior, whereas the ones that were built at like Vulcan Yards or something look like the Enterprise B or something.
Or maybe those separate like flares off to the side, maybe that's a removable pod and it's only useful for certain missions. They put it on the Enterprise B to like show, the reporters and everything what this ship can be capable of with these new side flares. The Lakota needed it for whatever its original purpose was before it was quickly reassigned to defense duty, and the hood just doesn't have it here. Maybe it's just not part of this specific mission parameter.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
Sorry, folks, we don't need the Nexus pod today. No Nexus. Fun fact, that the Lakota was the last appearance of that model.
Yeah, we haven't seen it since, I think.
Yeah.
Not in a whatchamacallit sense, not in a live action setting. We haven't seen that Excelsior again.
Yeah, and I get it. It's just one of those little things that, probably nothing.
Big J, here's an example for you, right? There's a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier called the Essex class, right? They were made originally in the Second World War. They were a straight line of a ship, right? That same class was still in service well through the middle of the Cold War, towards the end of the Cold War even, and it had so many changes to its hull that you couldn't even recognize it as being the same ship as the original one. Ended up with an angled flight deck, ended up with some had like different elevator locations, all sorts of big changes, right? But not all the Essex classes got that. Some of them were retired and just left the way they were. They became museum ships, and then other ones were brought back into service and didn't get those upgrades as things like ferry ships or transport ships. So
Right.
sometimes you just don't need to make the big change for like this ship's mission.
Yep. I get it. That makes sense. Right on.
Trivia.
Cool. So the other thing. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say trivia. Which two Enterprise D senior staff crew members came from the hood?
Riker and LaForge?
Yep, Riker. Well,
That is correct.
Yeah, that's right, because Beverly was already on Farpoint Station. Yeah, Riker and. Ooh.
Pretty sure Riker and LaForge, right?
I know Riker.
They're the only two. Okay.
That is the answer. Riker and LaForge.
Okay.
I thought it was LaForge, but for some reason I was just replaying the scene in my head, and the way Riker spoke to LaForge almost seemed like, well, okay, they may not have met and actually talked on the hood. It just seemed like their interaction was the first time they met.
2 fun facts for you, though, Big J, about the hood specifically. It also was seen in several battles in the Dominion War. Like, it was part of the fleet that took over Chintaka. You can actually see its name on its hull. And it's also part of Operation Return to Deep Space Nine proper. And then you also see its name listed in Nemesis as part of the task force that was going to intercept the Scimitar. So she's been around the block. She's done it all.
Yes.
Congratulations, the Hood. You got a promotion to Rear Admiral.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to mention that I thought was really neat was there's that scene where T'Ana is like dealing with the dude with the parasite on the guy's foot. And she mentions she mentions that like he doesn't need to know that I'm just going to chop off his leg and grow him a new one, right? Like jokingly and totally side comment, right? But we get very few references to like growing new limbs in all of Star Trek. Like there's maybe 5 or 6, right? And it's something that's not that crazy sci-fi for us even today, right? Like it's a little probably 10, 15, 20 years out there, but it's not impossible anymore. But we get so few references to it in Trek, so I'm happy that we got another one.
So the only one I can think of is the biosynthetic leg that Nog got after the Battle of AR-558.
Yep. The one that he kind of, for no reason really, used a cane, kind of walked around with with a limp
man.
with it until
It's a killer.
Yeah,
the PTSD episode was really tough, actually.
Yeah, it was.
It was.
It's Only a Paper Moon is highly regarded as like top 5 DS9.
Well, the other example I wanted to give was they were talking. Remember when Neelix got his lungs stolen by the Vidians?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The doctor talks about how I could grow him a new set of lungs, but I don't know shit about Talaxian lungs, right? So that's the other example I could think of. And, I'm sure there's another one here or there.
Which is kind of weird because we have the transporter logs. We know how to assemble Talaxian lungs from the buffer. So you'd think that we could just, have some kind of code that could update that pattern and then poof, Talaxian lungs.
Yep.
Well, lungs are probably very tricky, especially...
He was able to code a hologram on the fly.
Hey man, what do you want from me? I didn't write this stuff.
No. Actually, what's awesome about that, Jay, is I too appreciate being the devil's advocate to be like, let's burn this to the ground and find out if there's a way that this could be true. But he was able to code Talaxian equivalent lungs when we have to assume that like respiratory distinctions have to be considered.
Yep.
But do they though? That's the thing I'm thinking of here, right? So if you look at the structure of lungs, right, it's like a branching system of tubes where eventually like the alveoli are so thin that like only a handful of red blood cells get to the very end and they grab an oxygen essentially, right? And that take it along, right? Cool. You could do it that way simulated, or you could just make something more efficient where it's just like, here is a place where blood flows and we shove it oxygen.
I mean, you could totally do that. Or, and hear me out, Talaxian physiology is heavily interchangeable. We've seen a couple of times that he just merged with a Vulcan and came back. And also in that same episode, Kes gives him one of her lungs. Meaning we could have just spent a couple of weeks like studying Ocampa biology and replicate another set of Ocampa lungs and give them each 2 lungs and be, on our way.
So you're saying Talaxians are like very, malleable. You can do a lot with them. You can merge them with the Vulcan. You can throw some lungs in them.
There's less rejection problems with them, I guess.
Appears that way.
Okay, but yeah, I just thought it was neat that we finally got like a very straightforward, I'm going to chop it off and grow him a new one. Easy enough. They couldn't do that for the spine of Worf, though.
Well, no, yeah, he got a new spine.
That was
it was the Bracool. They tried the Genetronic replicator, Genetronic replicator. They tried that.
Genetronic
but it didn't work.
replication. They tried that.
Yeah.
They gave him the Brocklul. He died, and then hey, we've got secondary nervous systems. How about that? How do we not know about that? The Klingons have been our enemies and allies for like 2 centuries now, and we
That
didn't
should be
know.
known.
Like, what happened on the bridge of the? That now I just need to rewrite that battle scene in Way of the Warrior where all those Klingons are like attacking on ops, and they get taken out by like a Starfleet crew. Like 30 seconds later, what you didn't see was
They
all of
rise from
them
the
got
dead.
back up again. I get knocked down, and I get up again. You're never gonna
get
keep me down.
What about Gorkon? Why did a couple quick phaser hits to the chest kill Gorkon so easily? Why didn't he just rise from the dead?
Because it was a Klingon included conspiracy, and they told him exactly where to shoot.
Well,
But the 2 ensigns that went over were not Klingons, though.
No. The information filtered through to Valeris.
Oh, I see.
You know, I mean, if Klingons have redundant everything, how come that other dude showed up without an arm? You just have another arm.
I don't think they're quite chameleons.
they're not starfish.
It's not Starfish, it's Starfleet.
Oh, get him off this podcast.
I'm out of here. Just kidding. I'll be here all night.
We're done with you.
All right,
But
so
yeah, replicating.
what else did you guys think was really neat about the episode?
My favorite part, honestly, was the Zaden. I don't know if you guys noticed it or not, but the bald black dude had webbing in his hands, and he is confirmed by the writer to be a Zaden. So I was very happy about that. Anybody who is listening to this who caught my old Star Trek Adventure show, you know that I'm very passionate about Captain Ibsen Kijwik, who is my Zaden character in Star Trek Adventures and Trek RP, and he's coming back to a new game, and I'm excited to play him again.
Oh, nice.
But I do appreciate Zaldens.
You know, I know he wasn't human, but I didn't think he was a Zaden. That's a great catch.
It was a blink and you miss it thing. I
saw the webbing in the fingers and I knew he wasn't human, but I didn't catch that he was Zaden. That's very clever. Right. I was expecting if he was a Zaden, he'd be like big and burly like the first Zaden that we saw, and I assume all Zaldens.
I saw this dude as big and burly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just the perception thing then.
Not small.
No, not small, but okay.
He's like half a head taller than the Tellarite.
I mean, we're not talking.
Tellarites are short though.
Alright.
Like canonically short.
We're not talking Jack Reacher or Simon Cruz ripped, but you know, he's got some size to him.
I just really liked that. I liked the Klingon clowns with batleths for arms. Like, holy heck, what a nightmare!
Very
It, yes.
Like that's gotta be. I feel like that's gotta be like remnant of Batleth and Benux, like how he felt playing that game or something.
Mm-hmm.
But do we know that that was the fear from Blaymore though? Because I assumed it was the raisin.
Well, and we understand later that it's not necessarily all fear. There's something else at play, and so like that. The Kulkulkan return from the animated series.
And Brahms, voiced by the original actress, was delightful.
I had to look that up as soon as I saw it. I was like, is that Susan? Tell me it's Susan. It's Susan.
You know what I liked? My favorite part of this episode is the rivalry that the 2 California class crews have with each other. It seems like among the fleet, the lower deckers, they have this sort of, how do I want to put it, like a college football rivalry kind of thing. They know of each other, and their ships are like different teams. They compete. They hear of each other's adventures, things like that. Which is
I don't think it's just
good.
the lower deckers though. Remember in Deep Space Nine with the Vulcans on the baseball team episode, like that had that same kind of feel of like every ship wants to be the best ship, so let's edge out the other ships if we can, kind of thing.
That's true, yes, and I certainly see that. I think with this one, the way that they showed it is these ships are for the mop-up crew, the second contact, the paperwork crews, and they're not the elite ship. They're not the DS9 or the Enterprise or anything like that.
I don't think the DS9 was ever considered an elite posting of any kind. Remember originally it was like the Ascent of Space around like a broken down planet in a shitty old space station?
It
Frontier-
was, but
Frontier medicine. Listen, doctor, your frontier is my backyard.
It may have become an important base.
yeah, sure did.
But I don't think it was considered early on like this is the posting you want to get.
No,
like Gen Z taking
no.
that posting was probably like her being nice to help out her old friend who's been struggling a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at that time, that's where careers went to die, I think was that posting. But I get what you're saying there, and I like the interaction with the two different crews. Just the kind of rivalry they seem to have with each other.
Yeah, definitely. I really like the way that they interact. I like the fact that at the end they realize that, oh, they think we're the coolest. Huh, maybe we should have just asked that before we started competing.
Right?
No, you don't ask that. You got to compete first. Naturally, right?
Did either of you consider the staff held by the Scrubble to look a little bit like a planet eater? I thought it looked like a planet killer.
Okay, I see what you mean. That's
I'd have
fair.
to pull up a picture of it again.
Planet killer, mosquito, nectar, amber, whatever kind of green thing.
So, did you think that the green orbs at the beginning of the episode were the same thing as Beverly Crusher's like
Please
ghost
don't.
boyfriend?
I'm just.
That's what I thought it was at first.
Oh my god, my
Green
I'm out.
wispy cloud illusionary thing pops up.
Trying to
Okay, I'm a
seduce
dip.
you. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
That would have been terrible. A whole planet of like
Why?
Beverly
Renzo.
Crusher green candle ghosts. Oh gods. Oh gods.
Renzo, why?
Now I have to see it. That sounds amazing.
Why'd you do
That
this
was
to
my
us?
first thought to the episode. I was like, wait, is this the Beverly Crusher like ghost planet now? Kind of thing.
No, but it is just another planet in which scientists stumble upon another silicon life form trying to collect its orbs.
Oh, fair. I think the orbs were mines. They weren't. They were left out on purpose.
I was
so-
being ambiguous intentionally.
Okay. All right.
We have scientists treading upon an unknown space without really thinking about it. We've got a silicon life form, and we have orbs that have to be treated very carefully.
Question for you guys. First, I did go back and look some screenshots. You're right. The guy's staff does kind of look like the Doomsday Machine. The other question that I have is, okay, silicon-based life form. From what we know about it, at least in our time now, is that it's basically the complete opposite of carbon-based life form. That there is no compatibility with anything. Now, the way I'm seeing this is that they're in the sharing same space, atmosphere space, universal translator. I won't even get into that. It can do whatever it wants. But for silicon-based life form, it seems to be able to do things that I would think couldn't be done. And you've got Starfleet personnel on a planet with no kind of EV suit in an environment I wouldn't think that they should be there. Tell me if I'm wrong. It seems like there's incompatibility, complete incompatibility, but it's not being depicted that way.
So let me roll it back just a little bit, right? So if you look at like atoms that can be part of molecules, like elements that can be part of molecules, there's only one that works anywhere close to the way carbon does, and it's silicon, right? It's the only one that can make the same kind of structures that have analogs. So for example, methane's an important part of carbon-based life. We all make it. It's a necessary part of many organic processes, right?
Right.
The analog to it exists with silicon instead of carbon at the middle. It's called silane, right?
Okay.
There's a bunch of these little equivalents. If there's going to be another element that's part of making life that we know of, silicon's probably the most likely option, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of metabolic processes can function with silicon as like their equivalent. You gotta change all the fucking things around to replace them, but the analogs at least we know exist. So if there's something, it's probably silicon that's not carbon.
Guys,
As for like why this planet would be so close to M class, I don't know. We didn't see a drop of water there. I think like that would be an important thing for carbon-based life that the silicon ones may not need.
Well, I would think that any environment that would be able to support silicon-based life would not support carbon-based life any which way, how or whatever, unless you're in some kind of suit, and vice versa. To me, it just, and it's probably pedantic, but to me, it just seemed like, okay, if you're going to make a direct reference as to this is the type of life form it is, assuming that that is important somehow, if you're drawing attention to it, but yet none of the science matches what you're pointing to as the attention. It just, okay, here's a silicon-based life form. Let's hope that nobody watching this raises the question that these two environments should be completely incompatible with each other.
I would still argue that this planet is incompatible with carbon-based life. There's no water there, right? Like, we don't see an ocean. We don't see any sign of water anywhere, right?
Are you saying it is or is not compatible?
Is not.
It's not compatible.
Okay.
The fact
Which
that it
means-
doesn't
Right.
have water means we can't live there,
Which
basically,
means the
right?
scientists had to bring all of their habitable supplies with them.
Or replicate water as they needed it, right?
Right.
Whereas, like the exact molecules I mentioned a minute ago, silane, right?
Yep.
It's the equivalent for methane, right? Methane and water get along just fine. Doesn't matter. But silane and water don't get along fine. It reacts explosively. So I'm literally just reading this off Wikipedia.
So,
but like,
here's
I think that they've made some effort to make this not a human habitable planet.
here's an interesting thing.
Okay.
We as humans have technically sort of mastered and constructed millions of silicon brains around the world right now. I'm going to go with the computer analogy, like chips. They're silicon. They're thinking machines. Add a little lightning. They still do what we say because they're not intelligent. But this guy might just be held together by, lightning. Minor little electronic arcs and stuff like that, magnetically kind of sort of keeping him together and keeping his thought processes intact. Additionally to that, this planet is going to need an abundance of oxygen in order to make sure that kind of spark can maintain itself over millions of years. So it's probably breathable for our folks.
Yeah, I mean, or they may have gotten like a triox compound injection before going down, right?
Yeah.
Like something just not shown. Because Vulcan's air is thin enough that like humans have some trouble with it. So like this place, maybe something similar, and it's just a shot to get over it for a bit.
Well, yes, and I guess I would have been a little happier if they would have at least done something, for example, with Ensign Melora Paswar from DS9.
The accommodation.
Her planet was, yes, the accommodation that she had to have being in a higher gravity than what her planet was. And this episode was not about the accommodations for an alien being in a very different environment. I get that, but it just seemed a little bit on the lazy side for my taste.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, the Titan novels actually do a really good job of showing you like different housing accommodations for different species on the Titan, right? So like Melora Paswar is there as a scientist. Her quarters are specifically a gravity-free zone because that is just for her convenience. So she doesn't have to wear her suit while she's there. Because she ends up becoming like one of the head scientists, she gets her own science lab, and then she requests that it also be a gravity-free zone, and it's accommodated to. So like that makes sense. There's a crewman called Kachaka Op, who's essentially a giant trapdoor spider. That's just what she looks like, and she's a computer scientist. That's her fucking thing, right?
Well, okay.
Her quarters are essentially a den. It's like carved rock, and she makes a hole in it. Like that's what they gave her, and that's what she lives in, and she is happy with that. She doesn't have many house guests, but like they make accommodations for crew. I'm sure the same way the Cerritos has accommodations for their cetacean ops crewmates, right?
Sure.
So like, just the thought can be there. It just doesn't necessarily have to be shown every time. Like we haven't seen the two dudes as like quarters yet ever, but we can presume they have some kind of privacy other than the cetacean ops bay.
Well, yeah, I get it. Yeah, I totally get it.
I see your point. I see your point that the planet is rather like M-class-ish, but the fact that the lack of water is what sets me off there. I think it's kind of weird that it's so dry. So I think that they made effort there.
Yes. Yep. Good. I like it. I'm still distracted by the image on Dag's background that evil-looking California raisin right there. I mean,
That's Boimler's
That'll get-
fear.
yeah.
His whole
I'm
family.
surprised it wasn't one of the girls
Raising
from the
people.
farm chasing after him.
Oh, jeez.
Speaking of girls chasing after people, I
okay.
loved Jen. I loved the Jen in this episode, including the werewolf Jen. I thought it was hilarious.
I also thought it was hilarious.
I'm sad Suzanne isn't here because they would have loved the fact that there was more Jen on development this episode.
Suzanne, we miss you. Another kind of weirdo thing about the kind of socially awkward engineer who's got a thing for Dr. Leah Brahms.
Mhm.
Less creepy this time.
A little less nice guy.
Reverse creepy?
Yeah.
The Leah is actually pursuing him?
A
At least
little
it
less
didn't
nice
open
guy
with, like,
vibes.
It didn't
than
open with like,
LaForge.
Rutherford, whenever you touch this pad, you're touching
Oh,
me.
Dad. Okay, first we've got Renzo bringing up the green smoke that Dr. Crusher had an orgasm with. Now we're talking about the whole freaking hologram romance. Is there a full moon I missed?
Well, we have a werewolf, so yes.
Good one.
I'm trying
how-
to keep it clean, but
How about Boimler with his admiral showing up on a hover bike being like, we need you to save the galaxy, essentially.
Yeah, pretty
Love
much.
that.
Offering him 4 pips, I can make you a captain. And then did you see the preview for next week?
no,
Yes.
I don't watch. But you know my thing.
Yeah, I know your thing. But Renzo
can
knows what I'm
take- I
talking
can-
about too.
Of
I
course.
can turn off my headphones.
No,
If
no,
you
it's
guys want to talk about it?
No, we're
Got the
good.
button right here.
The audience, the audience knows. If you know, you know.
Okay.
IYK, YK. That's how it is.
And if you think that the habit of Big J not watching the previews is just stupid, tweet me, Twitter me, or whatever you call it, at 76 Big J. I'm trying to learn this whole Twitter thing. I think I've got the hang of it. Seems pretty cool, sort of. What's up with this limit of following people that you've got? Like there's some freaking ratio or something you've got to have? I don't know. I don't understand the whole damn thing.
You can only follow 5,000 people until you have a significant amount of followers that merits your account extra server space. It's my best guess right there.
Oh, great.
You hit 5,000 follows already?
No. Jay's trying to follow 5,000 people or something like that.
Mine said
Yeah.
4. Mine said something about
Oh,
but
4.
there's no way I tried to follow 4,000.
Dude,
I don't know.
I follow 3,200 and change right now. If you're listening to this and I don't follow you, fucking find me on Twitter because I'm trying to follow more Star Trek tweeters. Man, fucking my millennial is showing.
Well, I only
Gen
got
X,
really
you sure?
But in the last couple days of actually trying to get serious into it, there's no way. I don't know. Maybe I did hit that limit. I don't know. I'm trying to like follow anybody whose profile is Star Trek related and just, try to network with the people.
Yeah, just as an aside, be careful who you follow because not everybody with a Star Trek icon or text in their bio is a decent human being. Recently, there was an uproar of an account that featured everyone's favorite 2150s Beagle, and it was basically like it had ingratiated itself into the fandom as Porthos Twitter, and even the official Star Trek and Star Trek on Netflix accounts followed it, and Star Trek on Paramount Plus followed this account, and then it started tweeting transphobic bullshit.
Oh, that's why we can't have nice things.
That's why we can't have nice things. So, I used to be the one that's like, I'll just follow everybody until they're problematic. But now I'm really paying attention. And since I have like 2,800 followers, it's easy because one of them will assuredly tell me, hey, dude, check this out. And they'll shoot me a screenshot and I'll be like, fuck. All right.
Whoops.
So,
I guess
here's my beef about the episode because I had beef with one thing in particular that drove me crazy.
Jay, do you smell
You guys
that?
are taking my beef thing.
Jay, do you smell
I
that? It's
I smell
Wendy's.
Oh, where's the beef? No, wait a minute. That was
No, you're right. That's where
No,
the
that's
beef.
Wendy's.
Arby's.
No, it was fucking not.
No.
It was Arby's.
It was
no,
not.
It was Wendy's.
Oh,
Jay.
where's the meat?
Where's
thinking
the beef?
Sorry, yeah.
Where's the
Okay.
beef? All right.
I absolutely hated the back and forth between Captain Freeman and Captain Mayor
Me too.
about the fucking little trinkets.
That was so
That-
dumb.
That was a little too much. That was a little overextended.
It wasn't even just overextended because it went on way too long for sure, right?
Yes.
But it's
It was-
so unprofessional.
3 separate
Yes.
scenes.
It's so
It did
unprofessional
not
to do
need
that
3 scenes.
at all. And even if you were going to fight about, I don't want this piece of shit, you take this shit, you would never do it in front of the people giving it to you.
No.
It just doesn't come off as Captainly or Starfleetly at all.
No.
I get Lower Decks as a comedy, but that one pushes my bounds of like acceptance for it.
I would have maybe given it a mulligan, but when it went 3 scenes worth, no.
See,
Mm-mm.
there's actually a graph for this. You know, you start out with not funny, and it's funny because they do the thing, and then it extends on too long, so that the funny factor comes back down. But just
Yes.
like that scene in The Family Guy where Peter falls down and starts like nurturing his knee, it starts out funny and then it stops being funny and then it goes on too
Mhm.
long and it turns back into funny. This just didn't get
Yeah.
back there. It didn't.
Like every person who's listened to this podcast ever knows that my suspension of disbelief levels are pretty good.
Yeah.
I can give
Mhm.
things a pass or I can rationalize them.
Sure.
This is bad. Like 2 captains of 2 ships in orbit of your planet helping to negotiate some sort of settlement and peace and then get things off your planet are now fighting back and forth like children about the trinket that you've decided to give them.
Yeah.
Even if the trinket is a spy device, they don't know that. It's still
Yeah.
really fucking disrespectful.
You know,
like,
that
My
That
suspension
whole-
of disbelief breaks there.
that whole conversation should have been whether he wanted it or not. Captain Freeman had allowed showing graciousness to the audience by handing the trinket to her junior officer. Effectively, he might be a captain, but he's less senior.
Yep.
And he should have just
Right.
been like, "Why? Thank you very much. I accept this token." Blah 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 blah. Let's get into these conversations. The whole
just read the room,
negotiation. The whole negotiation could have been in progress when
Mhm.
Tendi comes and messes it up even worse. Because now Tendi's interrupting the conversation. She's interrupting diplomacy. She's interrupting negotiations. Everyone's going to be mad at Tendi, and she breaks the damn thing, and then suddenly Tendi's the hero. And that would have fulfilled Ta'ana's saying about, you've got to make it messier before you clean it up. And it would have been such a bigger mess to have Tendi invade that moment in what the audience would have been like, this is a really genuine negotiation. Like, what is Tendi doing? Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Saving the day. Go Tendi. Did I
Yeah, I think that would have been a lot better.
articulate that?
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
We did see Kayshawn.
We did see Kayshawn. He is also security again, which is nice.
It's nice to see Kayshawn.
Yeah, it
We
is.
is this the first time we've seen him since the
I believe
second
so.
season?
Yeah, it has been a minute, hasn't it?
It has
Uh-huh.
been a minute. Oh, I loved the Koala Black Mountain reference. I loved it. The koala, as everybody knows, is what you see when you ascend, and the Black Mountain, as you know, is where you have to face 3 faceless incarnations of your father to defeat death or something, and that's how Shax came
Yeah.
back, and we don't talk about the Black Mountain.
What happens on the Black Mountain stays in the Black Mountain.
How Stevens came back, like it was kind of nerfed how they like, oh yeah, we'll just cure everybody of turning to stone. How did these things turn people to stone if they were just designed to rob memories? Now my suspension of disbelief is a little messed up.
Just think of them as Medusa Stones.
Yep.
Just turns you to stone.
Yeah, but they're designed to telepathically interface with you to steal secrets. Why do they turn you to stone?
We have Klingon Clowns with batless as arms, and this is where you're hung up?
We have hallucinations of Klingon clowns with batless arm. I can get over that. It's not like the Raisin started singing "I Heard It Through the Grapevine."
Oh,
Oh, that would have been so good. I don't know. Star Trek has had goofy things that turn
Wait.
people to stone before, right?
It's a California class raisin.
Oh, man, you're on a roll. I'll have to give you that. You're doing good tonight. A California class raisin.
Oh. Sorry to interrupt you, Renzo, but go back to your speculation.
Maybe the mines are Thayleron powered. That's why it turns people to stone, just like Thayleron weapons did in Nemesis.
And we figured out how to counteract Thayleron destruction stuff.
Maybe.
I mean,
They remember the reason that the Federation had never known how to deal with it is because they'd never been exposed to it. After the terrorism on Romulus, certainly somebody figured it out or tried.
Thayleron powered. It would have no effect on non-biological life, so the Scrubble wouldn't give a shit about it.
Hell, they may be super advanced in Thayleron advancing technology because they're immune to it themselves.
Dude, this just turned into a way cooler speculation than I was hoping for. I love it.
And Thayleron stuff was green, and the little psychic mines were green, so...
Yep. And if you fuck Thayleron, it's cool, right? Wait, no. Wrong Candle Ghost. My bad.
Yeah, wrong Candle Ghost. Alright, what other standout things you guys got?
The Miggly Mo thing threw me off. It was almost like the writer's room was like, who's the worst person we could pair attendee with? Miggly Mo! And I'm like, just kind of seals the deal that I don't like Miggly Mo.
I think that was literally their objective, right? Like, who is Tendi going to vibe with the least? Shax? Maybe. Oh, wait, no, let's do Miggly Mo instead, kind of thing.
Okay, so here's an interesting observation. When we see the Cali-class cruisers, we can clearly see that they have division colors, right? We know Cerritos is...
Yellow.
Blue. Yellow.
And the Carlsbad is...
Blue.
And those divisions represent what, respectively?
I mean, I assume it's the colors of the different services in Starfleet.
Right,
Their
right.
specialty.
So you've got operations and science, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And we saw a red one.
We have seen a red one, but check this out, okay? So you've got the Cerritos, which is your operations engineering division, and you've got your Carlsbad, which is your science division. The Carlsbad's team is taking apart a machine, which is an engineering activity, while the Cerritos team is collecting the weird science shit.
But is it collecting weird science shit, or is it disposing of dangerous ordnance? Because that would be security stuff.
True.
Either way, I agree with you that the colors don't really match so often because
they knew it was dangerous. So yeah, I could go with I could get behind the ordnance thing. But on the surface, it's just interesting that the blue team was deconstructing a building.
Yes.
No, I actually agree with you. I think that the whole color matching the different California class ships has been kind of hit and miss, because most of the missions that we see the Cerritos do are really command missions. They're diplomatic stuff. So, I don't know. I think it may be less about the kinds of missions that they get assigned based on the colors, and more so the modules that are built into the ship to support things. So maybe the Cerritos just has like better industrial replicators than other ships. And that's how they have the yellow color for their band, right?
Instead of big long-range scanners and
which would be the
science
blues or
suites.
something. Yeah, I don't know. It's probably something pretty minor. Like we've seen all three colors for this California classes, so can't be that big of a thing.
Nah.
Here was a subverted expectation. When they got to the cave and started, and the Carlsbad team started like, oh no, we think you guys are awesome, I thought they were a hallucination at that point. I literally thought that like the Carlsbad team was like saving the day on the outside while the Cerritos team was cowering in a cave, and these hallucinations were like, yeah, you should feel good about yourself. You guys are cool.
I didn't think that for a second, but I wish I had, because that would have been hilarious.
I was telling Cal, I'm like, yep, they're fake. And then they weren't, and I was like, well, that's a twist. That's nice. Ah, man.
So, I just looked it up, by the way. The only red California class ship that we saw was the USS Solvang, which was the one that was attacked by the Packwoods, right? But they said what the mission that they were doing was, and they were surveying a star in the Cala system, right? That sounds more like a blue ship kind of mission, not a red ship. So it's probably not like a solid division anywhere.
Yeah, that is very interesting. Cali class seems to be the new every ship, basically.
Yeah, new Miranda class. Send it on anything small.
Yeah. that's really all I had to talk about. Does
Me
anybody
too.
have any wishes for the upcoming season to be like, who's missing? Who haven't we seen? Who would we like to see more of?
As I've said before, I want an update on William Boymore. I want to know what the other Boymore is doing.
Well,
Yeah.
well.
No, I don't think so. Don't spoil things.
Okay.
I want an update on that, and I guess I'm done with Miggly Mo. You know, I don't.
Guys,
I'm kind of done with him as a character.
last week was Star Trek Day.
Yeah.
There was some cool reveals at Star Trek Day. We get we're gonna spin off from Lower Decks now and talk about what we know
The
about
Crisis Point episode?
season 3 of Picard. I didn't see any Crisis Point anything.
Yeah, you did.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, you did.
Maybe I did.
You linked it to me.
Did we talk
The
about
Lower
it?
Decks, the Lower Decks trailer. That was a Crisis Point episode.
Oh, well, I just want to talk about Picard right now because there's a new Titan.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
There's a new Titan. There's a new Titan, and Commander or Captain Annika Hansen is.
I think Commander.
I think
Rank
Commander.
Commander.
She
Role
is
Captain.
She's
Yeah.
she's the commanding officer of this new Titan, and I'm a little sad that we don't get to see like Riker's Titan on live action. That would be beautiful, but technically it's 20 years later, so maybe they've retired the Titan.
Yeah.
Nobody gets
The
to beat
only
the
complaint I have
Enterprise's
about
Riker.
the ship. The only complaint I have about the ship is its class name. Nope.
Oh.
I'm okay with the nacelle struts. I'm okay
yeah.
with everything. The
It-
design is neat.
Just say it. Oh.
The Neo Constitution. I don't like it. I'm a ship nerd, so designs are great. It reminds me a lot of the Vesper class from Star Trek Online. It's got some cool little things here and there. Whatever. It looks like an updated Constitution class. Obviously, that's the fucking goal. Did they have to name it the Constitution, Neo Constitution class? I would have preferred
Nope.
Constitution 2, like they did with the Excelsior 2. That's much better than Neo Constitution.
They could have taken a synonym for Constitution and called it the Charter class.
Sure.
Sure.
That
Yeah.
would have been cool.
Overall, love the design. Hate the name.
Can't wait to see Dr. Crusher with the phaser. Gates McFadden says that this is the most action the character has ever seen in Star Trek, so I'm happy for that. Remember, Dr. Crusher is the bad bitch that blew up the Borg ship in Descent all by herself. She used a sun to do
Yep.
it. Klingons are still singing that song.
Alright,
So yeah, that was my Picard little quip there. What's up, Renzo?
Oh, I was just going to say, I think that I found the phrase for what I was trying to say before.
Oh, yeah.
It's awful taste but great execution for the Neo Constitution.
Right. Right.
The name is just bad, but the execution for the design, phenomenal.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's all I had.
Same. Love the episode, though, overall. How about you guys?
Yeah.
Just
It was
an
a lot of
overall
fun.
thoughts on it.
It was a lot of fun.
It was
I liked
good.
the action. I liked that it kept going back and forth between the ship and stuff. There wasn't really time for a dull moment. And I like that Tendi's reverence towards Ta'ana is growing, and Ta'ana is being a Bones figure for her.
Mhm.
I think Ta'ana and Bones could have a great conversation over a good mint julep.
Yeah,
For sure.
I would definitely think that those two would get along swimmingly.
Today's episode is going to be called "Don't Be a Menace to Starfleet While Drinking Your Synthale on the Hood." For
You
those
wrote
of you,
that down, didn't you?
I did. It's right here. I wrote that down because we spent like a third of this episode getting happy about the hood, so that was kind of cool to see.
Yep.
Stay tuned next time when Beyond Trek Podcast visits Lower Decks episode 4. We don't really know the name of it yet, but it's going to be a season 3 episode because that's where we are.
Room for Growth. That's the name of the episode.
Oh, well, thanks, Renzo. Room for Growth. This sounds like a sequel to, what was that one? Moist Vessel?
I love that episode name.
Yes.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking around and listening to these three chuckleheads just Jones about Star Trek. You know we love it. You know we love you. And thank you for always going boldly with Beyond Trek Podcast.
Hey everybody, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to our Patreon and Anchor supporters, to S. Tam and Nora Hickson. Thank you so much for being a part of Beyond Trek Podcast.
We are Beyond Trek Podcast. Lower your inhibitions and surrender your ears. We will add inspirational and hilarious Trek content to your day. Your attention will adapt to subscribe to us. Resistance is futile.